China is operating the Panama Canal, and we're taking it back. The Panama Canal was built by Americans for Americans.
Panama Canal is also suffering from major disruption as many fewer ships are now getting through.
The Panama Canal is supposed to be the world's shortcut button. When it works, ships skip thousands of kilometers of extra sailing, fuel, and time. But when the water runs low, that shortcut turns into a question mark, and the entire supply chain starts holding its breath. In 2023, drought helped turn the canal into a slow-moving line. Some ships waited days, then weeks, burning fuel and money just to stay in place. That kind of delay does not stay at sea. It shows up as missing parts, late deliveries, and higher prices that quietly creep into everyday life. Here is the key detail most people do not think about. The canal is not just a trench in the ground, it's a water-powered elevator. Ships rise and fall through locks, and those locks use huge amounts of fresh water each time a vessel passes. That fresh water mostly comes from Lake Gatun. When rain is normal, the system can run at high volume. When rain is not normal, managers have to make hard choices because the canal's water is also tied to people and cities that depend on the same watershed. So, when the canal slows down, it's not because someone forgot to turn the handle. It's because the engine of the canal is water, and water can be scarce. Ships are then limited by how many slots exist each day, and sometimes by how heavy they are allowed to be. Even when conditions improve and more ships can pass, the warning remains. This choke point is sensitive to weather, and weather is getting harder to predict. That's why logistics teams keep asking a quiet question that sounds simple but changes everything. If the Panama Canal cannot always be trusted, what else can move cargo between oceans without sailing around a continent? That's where the headline hits you like a drumbeat, a $50 billion tunnel that makes the Panama Canal outdated. It sounds like a giant hole drilled through the planet. It sounds like a new cheat code for global trade. But the twist is that Mexico is not building one massive tunnel under mountains and cities. Mexico is building a land bridge, a corridor with ports on two oceans connected by rail across the narrow waist of the country. Mexico calls it the Interoceanic Corridor of the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, shortened to CIIT. The basic promise is bold. Unload cargo on one coast, move it across Mexico by rail, then load it onto another ship on the other coast ready for the next leg towards the United States, Europe, or other markets. Now, about that $50 billion number, it often shows up in the story as if it's one single construction bill, but in public messaging, it's better understood as a long-term investment goal tied to industrial parks and regional development by 2050, not a single tunnel price paid all at once. That difference matters because it changes what we're really judging. We're not judging one mega dig. We're judging a whole new trade zone built to attract factories, warehouses, rail upgrades, port expansion, and jobs that keep cargo moving. And timing matters too. Industry reporting has described the corridor as already operating, with full completion targeted for June 2026. That's not a distant dream. That's a deadline designed to meet a world that is already nervous about choke points. When the old route feels fragile, a new route does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be there. The Isthmus of Tehuantepec is one of the shortest land gaps between the Pacific side of Mexico and the Gulf side. This is the geography that makes the corridor possible. It's a narrow crossing where the oceans feel close enough to argue. The corridor's core link is a rail crossing of about 303 kilometers, connecting ports like Salina Cruz on the Pacific and Coatzacoalcos on the Gulf. That number is not just a measurement, it's the length of the bet Mexico is placing on the future of shipping. Mexico launched passenger and cargo rail service on this route on December 22, 2023. Officials described a trip time of about 3 hours for the train itself. That sounds like a clean, fast sprint across the country. But keep that detail in your pocket, because the train ride is only one piece of the story. The real race is not just the wheels on the tracks. The real race is everything that happens before the train starts and after it stops. Ports must unload safely and quickly. Cargo must be staged, scanned, tracked, and secured. Rail schedules must be reliable, and the cargo must be loaded onto another ship without chaos. The corridor wins or loses in the handoffs. That's why Mexico is not only selling a shortcut, Mexico is trying to build a system strong enough to make shipping companies trust it with real cargo, real deadlines, and real money. Here's how the move works in plain language. A ship docks at Salina Cruz on the Pacific side. Containers or vehicles come off the ship. They are placed onto rail cars. The train crosses the isthmus. Then the cargo is loaded onto another ship at Coatzacoalcos on the Gulf side, ready for the next leg towards the United States, Europe, or other markets. The corridor is betting that one short land hop can beat one long wait at a canal, at least in the moments when the canal is under stress. It's a simple idea with a complicated reality. Trade is not only about distance, it's about predictability. Supporters of the corridor have used big benchmarks, over 1.4 million containers per year, containers crossing in only 6 hours, a flood of investment pulled into the region over decades. These claims create excitement, and excitement is useful when you want the world to pay attention. But there's a difference between a target and a routine. Targets live on slides and speeches. Routine lives on docks at midnight when a schedule slips and workers still have to make the handoff. That's why pilot shipments matter more than promises. A pilot is not just a test, it's a reality check, a stress test, and a trust test all at the same time. One pilot story shows what the corridor can look like in practice. In early 2025, Hyundai Glovis moved 900 vehicles using the corridor. Reporting described the rail crossing itself as taking around 9 hours for each shipment. And here's the part that brings the story back down to earth. The Mexico portion of the journey was described as 6 days once you include the full sequence of unloading, rail moves, staging, and reloading. That's still useful, but it's not a magical 6-hour tunnel that teleports cargo between oceans. So, does that mean the corridor fails? Not at all. It means the real value is not a fantasy number. The real value is optionality. The corridor is another door, another lever, another route that can be chosen when the canal becomes uncertain. Shipping runs on schedules, but it's punished by surprises. When a canal queue forms, companies pay an uncertainty tax. They pay in fuel, they pay in fees, they pay in inventory sitting in the wrong place, they pay in customers who stop trusting delivery dates. In 2023, drought-backed restrictions and long waits reminded the world that the Panama Canal is not a machine that runs the same way every day. It's a system tied to nature. When nature changes, the system changes too.
This is why alternatives matter, even if they are not the cheapest path on a perfect day. Businesses do not only optimize for the best day, they build plans for the worst day. A second route can protect a whole season of shipments when the first route becomes a gamble. That is the corridor's strongest argument. It does not have to replace the Panama Canal to reshape shipping decisions. It only has to be credible enough that planners can say, if Panama slows down, we are not trapped. And the moment you are not trapped, the power balance shifts. A single choke point can demand premium pricing and priority rules. A world with a second option can negotiate. Now comes the honest part. The Panama Canal is still enormous. It has spent a century becoming the default shortcut between oceans. It moves a meaningful share of global trade, and it has an entire ecosystem built around it. That makes the word outdated a very high bar. A new corridor does not erase an old canal like a new phone erases a landline. Shipping is not that clean. Shipping is a web of contracts, habits, insurance, schedules, and proven reliability. Mexico's corridor is not trying to swallow all canal traffic overnight. The more realistic play is to take certain types of cargo at certain times of year for certain customers who value control more than tradition. The money story is also more complicated than a single number. Some reporting emphasizes billions in public spending. Other framings emphasize a much larger long-range investment vision that includes ports, rail upgrades, and industrial development. And the $50 billion figure is often described as a decades-long magnet goal rather than a single construction invoice. This matters because it changes what success looks like. Success is not only trains running. Success is factories choosing the region. Success is supply chains anchoring themselves near the ports. Success is enough steady demand that the corridor runs like a routine, not like a special event. Capacity is the next fork in the road. Every container that crosses the isthmus must be lifted off one ship and onto another. That handling adds time, cost, and risk. The corridor wins when speed and reliability beat the extra handling. This is why the corridor is especially interesting for high-value cargo or time-sensitive cargo, the kind of shipments where a delay costs more than a transfer. The corridor is not trying to be the cheapest option for everything. It is trying to be the smartest option for the right things. Big infrastructure lives or dies on trust. Trust is built by reliability, safety, and predictability. It is also tested in moments that no one wants to talk about, because those moments reveal what the system really is. On December 28, 2025, an interoceanic train derailment in southern Mexico was reported to have killed at least 13 people and injured many others. The human tragedy is the first and most important fact, but for a trade corridor, it also raises a practical question. How strong are the safety systems, the maintenance routines, and the response capability when something goes wrong? A corridor cannot be a serious option unless it can recover fast and prevent repeats. There is also the human map of the region. The corridor runs through communities with deep history and identity. Development can bring opportunity, but it can also bring tension if people feel land, jobs, and decision-making are being reshaped without their consent. Even if the steel and concrete are finished, long-term smooth operation depends on more than engineering. It depends on governance, local partnerships, transparent benefits, and the ability to solve conflicts without shutting the system down. And then there is the global map. The Panama Canal is adjusting too, changing transit slots as conditions shift. Analysts track how weather patterns and demand pressures interact with canal operations, and that analysis suggests a simple return to the past cannot be assumed. So the future likely is not one winner. The future is multiple routes used more strategically. Some cargo will still go through Panama because it is efficient when conditions allow. Some cargo will go around capes when it is cheaper. Some cargo will shift to rail bridges when speed and risk matter more. The corridor is Mexico placing itself into that future, not as a replacement for everything, but as a new player that changes the options menu. If outdated means the Panama Canal disappears from the map, the evidence does not support that. Panama still has scale, and Mexico's corridor includes extra handling steps that only make sense in specific cases. But if outdated means the world is no longer forced to bet everything on one water-powered elevator, then yes, something real is happening. A 303-kilometer land bridge with a completion target around June 2026 is Mexico saying global trade does not have to rely on one choke point alone. The corridor doesn't need to beat Panama every day to matter. It only needs to be good enough that shippers can plan around uncertainty. It only needs to be reliable enough that a logistics manager can tell a client, we have a backup route. And that is the deepest change of all. The biggest power in global trade is not speed, it's control. When you have more than one path, you can choose. When you can choose, you can negotiate. When you can negotiate, the map stops being fixed. So maybe the real story is not a tunnel that kills a canal. Maybe the real story is a second door that forces the entire shipping world to rethink what a shortcut even means. Because once the world learns it can cross between oceans without waiting on one fragile choke point, the Panama Canal is still important, but it is no longer alone.